All right, good evening, everyone. I'd ask that you would please rise as we welcome Pastor the Reverend Dr. Douglas Dent to give the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we come to you today asking for your guidance, your wisdom, and your support as we begin this meeting of the City Council. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that affect the citizens of Fergus Falls. And continue to remind us that all we do here tonight, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, and in the service of our neighbors. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. It's 5:30, January 16th, 2024, and we'll call this meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Here.
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 We have a quorum. First item of business this evening is approval of the agenda, and we'll call on our City Administrator, Andrew Bremseth, for any changes to that agenda. Good evening, Andrew.
Yeah, good evening, Your Honor, council members. I'm not aware of any changes to the agenda this evening, so we can approve it as presented.
Someone like to offer that?
I'll offer that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Jim.
second it.
Thank you, Brent. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. There are no public hearings this evening. Under awarding of bids, we have a resolution to award the 2024-25 tree trimming and removal services contract to Cars Tree Service, and we'll call on our Public Works Director, Guy Taylor. Good evening, Guy.
Good evening. Thank you, Your Honor. Every 2 years, we put out a request for quotes for a tree contractor. We've had the same tree contractor now for 3 cycles, going on to the 4th here, if you approve. Cars Tree Service has done a fine job for us, removing Dutch elm disease trees and doing trimming for us in our 5 sectors that we've identified. So we've got $165,000 budgeted for 2024 for tree services, including the diseased trees and the trimming. And just like for you to approve the contract with Cars Tree Service for this next 2-year period.
Thanks, Guy. We can do that through a resolution.
I'll offer that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll
Thank you.
second.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions for Guy? Roll call, please.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Kwame.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
Kramer.
Yes.
Ben, I should have asked one
Yeah, that
question.
resolution is approved. Go ahead, Scott.
It's probably more for Bill. If there's stuff left over from the year before, does that recur into the next year or not?
We are going to look at that kind of as we go through our audit and wrap up the books for the year to see how the fund balance comes out, and then we would evaluate carrying forward anything that's left.
Okay,
But
that's
we
what-
don't automatically do that.
You don't, it's not like a snow removal.
No, we'll bring that before you as a council.
Okay, thank you.
The request has been made.
Yep, Guy has made the request. I just said he has to wait a little while.
Thank you. Moving along under petitions, communications, and open forum. At this point, we will open the floor to anyone in the audience wishing to address the council pertaining to any issues not on the agenda this evening. Please step to the lectern, state your name.
Council, thank you, Mark Layton. I'm here on behalf of all the taxpayers in Fergus Falls. I was able to digest the state of Minnesota's analysis of all the 2023 budgets that the city's filed. 24 is not available. Now, again, this is an average. All cities in Minnesota, the total spending is $1,187 per person. Again, all average, all cities in the state of Minnesota, the average spending per person is $1,187. Fergus Falls is $2,199. If you break it down, the general government, the average is 143. Fergus Falls is 181. And again, I remember this is 2023 numbers, and the 24 budget, as worked on by the committee is increased. Public safety in the state of Minnesota is 356. Fergus Falls is 387. Streets, all cities, 120. Streets in Fergus Falls, 216. Recreation, all cities is 122. Fergus Falls is 235. Economic development, all cities, $62. Economic development state in Fergus Falls is $72. Streets, all cities, $76. Fergus Falls, $274. Total capital outlay, all cities, $148. Fergus Falls, $654. I urge the Budget Committee to continue to focus on this budget and trim it where you can. We've had many conversations about it. No one's reached out to me. But I appreciate if you would look at this information, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Layton. Anyone else wishing to address the council on any issues not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we will move along to the consent agenda. This evening, we have 10 items on the consent agenda. They're on the board. Packet. If anyone has any issues, any of those items they'd like to talk about independently?
Number 10, if I could.
We'll take off number 10. Anything else? That's the only one we can pass the other 9.
And make
Resolution.
I'll make that resolution.
Thanks, Anthony. Thank you, Brent. Roll call.
Thompson.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Bonnie.
Yes.
Yes.
Steinmeier.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Item number 10 is a resolution accepting donations for Public Improvement 9504, the Aquatic Center. Anthony?
Yeah, I was just curious as what the total amount was. It didn't say an amount on it, so,
No, it's a generic resolution to accept future donations.
Right.
So, we've been approached and people are given some interest, so we thought we'd get that in front of you so we could start collecting if people wanted to give some, so.
so is it possible to get an update on what has been donated at some point?
Sure,
Maybe.
because 0 has been donated right now.
Right.
So
That's easy.
the initial, we're probably looking at maybe around $10,000,
Right.
so.
With that, I'll make the resolution.
Thank you.
Is
Would
it a-
someone like to second that?
I'll second.
Thanks, Jim. Roll call, please.
Thompson.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Bonnie.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
Yes.
The resolution is approved. Under ordinance and resolutions, first item is a resolution approving an encroachment agreement at 1205 West Lincoln Avenue. We'll call on our Community Development Manager, Claire Beck. Good evening,
Good
Claire.
evening, Mayor and council members. This is a continuation of a discussion that began at Committee of the Whole last week. As you may remember, there is a clinic that is hoping to move into the former Sunmart building, which has been broken down into suites for use by different businesses. One of the pieces of the puzzle that needs to get put into place for this clinic to move in is the parking that's on site. The entire building itself is surrounded by parking, but specifically for the use of a clinic, there needs to be a certain number of spots as required by the city. We require, based on the square footage of the site, about 37 spots. The lessee who is looking to move into the space requires about 25 per their contract. So in talking with council on Wednesday, staff had proposed kind of like a head-on parking in the right-of-way to the side of the building. Listening to what council said on Wednesday and then talking with the building owner, we do have a new layout to present to you, Lynn, if you can pull that up, that takes into account council's interest in diagonal parking, and also takes into account the needs of the user and the number of parking spots required by the city. So I think this really is kind of the best of all possible outcomes for this site. We do have the building owner in the audience with us, should you have any questions about the project for him. I do want to note that the building owner made a comment that this parking layout does still require people to make a 3-point turn at the end of the street. So there is still, I mean, pulling in, pulling out does get a little bit easier, but there is still a turn that has to be made since that's a dead-end street. So he just wants that to be pointed out, but that this is a reasonable layout that could solve the problems that we have on the site. So any questions?
Thanks, Clara. Any questions for Clara?
I'm not so much a question, but I looked on the county website today, and the property taxes are not up to date on this property. And, you know, as much as I would like to see progress, I got concerns about the parking too. We want to develop the dairy site and add a crossing at the bottom of St. Andrews. So that would allow kind of through traffic, you know, coming through there. But I think, you know, my biggest issue is we have people come to the council seeking us to do, you know, things for them, and then they don't pay their property tax. And I think that is, you know, it's tough to do. And we've done it with the mall, and we get burnt every time. And for me, I can't vote for this in favor of it because I would like to see, you know, it's like honor at the end of the day to, you know, we require people to pay property tax, and 99% of people in Fergus pay their property tax, and some do not. And I think it's wrong that you should, you know, ask then the city for something in return when you don't pay your fair share for the rest of the citizens in the community. As much as this is a good project, then you know, figure the parking out on the land you own, as opposed to asking us for a favor.
Thanks, Anthony. Scott?
Claire, on the drawing you've got up on the wall, then I don't see, but maybe the line is there. Where would the amount of encroachment be defined? Is it just, or is there no encroachment in this layout?
No, there is. Lynn, I'm sorry, can you pull the top of the
Is it the
screen?
thicker black line? Is that the property border?
That's, yes. So where the spots are is the right of way, the diagonal lines, and then it's the property inside the black line, the thicker black line.
Okay.
So St. Andrews above. Does that answer your question?
It looks like it's probably the area between the street and the property line, which would be the right-of-way.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Al?
I think maybe I misheard on Wednesday morning. The issue too was the closeness of the parking spots, not just the number of spaces. What is it? Is it the number of spaces or the closeness? I think it's the number of spaces. Am I correct in saying that? Because that's what you mentioned just now.
Well, it's both. They have also requested that there be parking along the side because then they are a little bit closer to the building.
And who requested that?
The tenant.
Okay. Now, as far as something just doesn't seem quite right to me, because I think it almost seems like there was a kind of a agreement thought of ahead of time because of its spaces. I mean, I look at that, and I was out there and I looked at around the building, and there is a slope that goes right down to the street from the building. Now, we're literally going to put veterans in the street. The other thing that is a big concern to me
is there's veterans that are in a wheelchair that don't have limbs, and they're going to try to navigate that on a hill into a street, not a parking lot, where somebody could go flying down there at 30 miles an hour. I live on a dead-end street, and that's gravel, and that happens, and mine's just a half a block. And people come flying down that road. This is even in a location where it's more prevalent to happen. That's what I'm concerned about. Now, also, too, it says on our paperwork what type of clinic it is. Can I say that? Okay, it's a VA clinic. So they're going to move the VA clinic from the veterans' home over to this locale. That's what I was understood. They're going to move part of that, right, Jim? Yes. Okay. I don't think you would want your comrades getting out of their car and trying to navigate a wheelchair on a slope that goes to a city street. The other thing, what I think is,
Point out, the ADA spots are actually in the parking lot, so they're not, none of those spots there are right now designated as the ADA spots. The
as-
two ADA spots are there with the, you can see the icon.
so I thought the ADA spots had to have the closeness to the building. That's why you wanted that.
So this is a new drawing that's been done
'Kay.
by the building owner's construction company. And this is where they have now placed the ADA because it needs to be out front.
So the two that were on the north end are not there anymore. Is that correct?
Well, and our last drawing never indicated that those were ADA spots either.
That these were not on the original drawing? The two on the north?
It just showed spots. It
Okay,
was
this
just
had handicap spots on it here. On
Okay,
my-
well,
on
it
my-
was just
on my
a
drawing.
concept.
Okay. I guess what I'm,
This is an actual drawing by a construction company.
what concerns me is people parking there. What liability, and I don't want the liability as voting for this. I think there's too much of a liability that the city can have and the taxpayer can have. That if somebody got hit out there, worse yet, killed in a certain situation, what's the liabilities that we agreed to do this? I think that's what's tricky for me. The other thing too is I'd like to see what the federal government has to weigh in on this, that situation would be done. And what was the original proposal?
Sure, I think we can address the insurance as part of the agreement. The building owner would maintain insurance.
Right, but it's a city liability that we're voting for this to put a veteran in the street. Possibility, having a veteran go in the street. And that's what concerns me. These people have fought for our country and our way of life. I don't think we need to have them getting out with the chance of going into the street,
Okay.
rolling into the street. That's a big concern of mine.
Sure.
The other option, I think, if you want an option, is the gas station. I know that was part of the Sunmart property. It did get sold. It can be purchased back. I think that's a simple remedy. Also, too, I'd be more inclined if this was a new business or a new clinic. I know it's going to be bigger, which is great, but there's also other facilities out there, I believe, that could handle that load. But I think the other thing too is, once something like this is agreed upon, it's very rare that it would ever get backed out of it. I would like to hear one example that this has ever, something like this has been done and then it's been taken away. I don't know of any. And it looks like, you don't know either. But I think what it would do, I'm concerned of all the money that's been put into this riverfront, if you want to call it the kind of the Gold Coast of Fergus, if you want to. I think that's going to be a busy road. I think it's going to hamper the development for that riverfront. And I don't think it's a place for that clinic. Unless that other building is acquired and that space is acquired for their parking. Because that parking is right there.
They need the space, so purchase the land next to it. And I think also too, do they need 2 in and outs?
I am not sure.
I think they do. So I think that's another thing to look at. It's basically landlocked without the purchase of that old gas station of the Holiday Gas. That's my comments, thank you.
Tom?
Maybe I'm missing something, but I guess I don't see the difference between a veteran getting out of their car in one of those parking spots or my father-in-law getting out of his car in front of my house on Beach when people are driving by at 40 miles an hour. I don't really, and all over town, I mean, how many parking spots do we have all over town in high traffic areas? So I don't understand that, and I don't see the difference. So I'm in support, and I'm happy to see jobs being created and retained in Fergus Falls, and I appreciate the reuse of the land. You know, there was, the election, one of the last election cycles where the big thing was, all the empty buildings in Fergus, and, it's such a plague, and I think, a lot of people in a lot of groups, including Greater Fergus Falls, have done a great job towards alleviating that and should be applauded. So I'm in full support of this, and I don't see any problems with it.
Thanks, Tom. I would just say I think also that I can only assume that the VA is fully aware of this site and the plans. I think certainly they know more about their customers, their needs than I do. I'm not going to second guess the VA that they haven't looked at this site. I agree. We talk about being business friendly constantly. We have someone who's taken a risk, who's filled an empty building. They have a contract and an opportunity to provide a service to veterans in our community. And we're going to stand up here and pick that plan apart and say, we're the experts on where veterans should get their care. So I have a real problem with that. We have a compromise that accommodates the veterans, that accommodates the filling of a building, and is business friendly. And I have a hard time believing sometimes how we talk out of both sides of our mouth.
I'd like to.
Well, I'm not done. And I'm going to call on Scott Rachel's next. So we're not going to get into a back and forth here. We're going to get a resolution entertained, and then we can vote it up or down. We've got a compromise that's been presented. Scott, did you have something? I'd like, actually, you know what, before we discuss this any further, would someone like to offer a resolution?
I'll offer the resolution.
Thank you, Jim. Second? Thank you, Scott. Go ahead, Scott. We're not going to engage in a bunch of
No,
back
I
and
got a
forth
couple
here.
questions on the site. When you're going to put those parking stalls, they're going to excavate it down so it's level. I assume I know I thought it was going to go up, and I looked at it this morning too, and it looks like it. There's probably got to be 3 feet taken out of it, so I'm sure that that's going to be excavated out. And part of this agreement will be taken, whatever we're taking on the boulevard or whatever you want to call it. And so after seeing that and understanding that, but is there some other drawings out there too of what was kind of discussed, different things? Andrew, I think you and I talked a little bit.
Yeah, Your Honor, if I may.
Yeah,
Councilmember
yes, please, yeah.
Rachel's, I've seen a few different concepts that have been created, I think, internally to the city, working directly with the property owner to look at various ways in which this could lay out. And there is a iteration of a diagonal parking that looks a little bit different than this one. I don't know if we have it. We do have it handy, which, to me makes more sense than the one shown on the board, but ultimately the property owner is making a request of the city, and the council needs to decide if they want to grant that request and if they want to grant an encroachment agreement and what that may look like. So I don't know that my opinion means a whole lot, but this rendering here is one that I was made aware of that it shows diagonal parking, but it would be more so on the building side than the street side. So somebody would pull in to the approach off of St. Andrews, would go south, pull into the diagonal parking, and then when they were to leave, they would back, out at the 45 degree and then pull forward to the other approach to the south, which
Similar to US Bank, this would be?
yeah, and it's similar to, we have kind of the exact same setup at Quality Circuits, in front of the main doors at Quality Circuits and on Progress Drive. Some of those diagonal parking spots do encroach on the right-of-way, and we have a right-of-way or an encroachment agreement with them, and that's proven to work well. You can see the green line on this drawing. I know it's hard to see, but that's the right-of-way line. So the encroachment on this particular layout's only a couple of feet. I don't have an exact number, but it's a real small encroachment compared to, completely utilizing the right-of-way and some of the other drawings that have been shown. So I think, Councilmember Kranemeyer, this probably addresses a lot of the concerns that you just stated. I don't know if it does or not. You'll have to decide that, but this is another option. And ultimately, you as a council, you hold the ability to say yes or no to encroachments on the right-of-way, so you do have some say in how this looks.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Councilmember Kramer?
Thank you. Just to address the issue of parking on a street, that's somebody's choice to park on a street, on a city street or a downtown street, wherever it is. And, people are going to go 30 miles an hour past that. You're parking there because you know that, you realize that. These people are handicapped or they're elderly. The reflexes aren't quite the same. Mine aren't anymore. I'll say that right off the bat. I'm concerned for the people. I'm also concerned that, as I hear that property tax isn't paid once again. That's a concern, and yet somebody wants something from the city. And Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry if you think people are talking out of both sides of their mouth, but this is for the taxpayer. I'm sorry, I don't feel that way. This is a business that could be anywhere in town. The VA, I don't believe, is going to leave Fergus Falls. There's other locations. There's an easy remedy is to purchase that gas station. And I'm disappointed you made that comment. Thank you.
I'll make this one as well. The VA made the decision to negotiate with the property owner. They brought a reasonable request for an encroachment agreement to the city council, and we're going to vote on it. I'll make that statement as well. Scott?
I'd like to speak in favor of the resolution. I seconded it after Jim brought it forward, and I think that from what we saw at our committee of the whole meeting and the original proposal with the straight-in parking and the difficulties that brought, to now have a revised plan that addresses those concerns in a reasonable way, I think it's good. It shows that the property owner has been willing to work with the city on this, and the city's been willing to, modify the approach somewhat as well. Angled parking is present all over the world, and it works just fine. I don't see that it'll be any problem here, and so I speak in favor of the resolution.
Thanks, Scott. Laura?
So my concern with this is the three-point turn that we're going to encounter. I feel that it's going to probably drive more traffic to go through the Toyota parking lot, no matter which way we angle those stalls. So I'm not in favor of it with the fact that right now they're going to have to do a three-point turn there.
Thanks. So we have a resolution.
So can we just clarify which one are we voting on? This one or the other one?
It's the other one.
I think it's the one that was presented.
For now.
Yep.
That one.
That one.
All right, so everyone clear? We're going to call for the...
Can I comment?
Yes, please. Feel free to comment.
Lori Mullen, and I'm one of the adjoining property owners. Just some comments here that this was not brought before the Planning Commission. It was not, the landowners were not notified in the area. So, we always talk about community input and community engagement, and we're lacking that in this process. We spent a lot of money and thought on the river plan and that master plan, and this is not taking into regard St. Andrews Street at all. First of all, I'd like to say it's a good project. So, Mayor, I don't think that anybody's not in favor of, the VA locating in that building, but I do have a challenge with how we're doing the parking there. We need to take more of a strategic plan or look at what we're doing with St. Andrews Street further out than just this year, next year. That should be the grand entrance down to Barefoot Park. And if we're planning on having events down there, food carts or anything else, we're gonna need parking for residents. So I'm not in favor of the way that they have this parking set up. I brought before the Planning Commission in March of '22, when Sunmart was looking at selling their parking, and talked about what the ordinances were for the city, and addressed that and brought it back to the council in April of '22. And now here we're parking people in the street when they had a large enough parking lot, and that was actually addressed. The thing is that Mike said, oh, well, you know, in a couple of years, if we want to reverse this, you know, things get going along St. Andrews Drive there and what we're doing with the riverfront, and this can all be reversed. We know that's not going to happen. Nothing's going to be reversed. It is whatever we're going to say that it is today. We know that. The proposal that the VA put out there, it had nothing. I looked at that proposal myself, and the parking that's getting proposed there today, that was not in that proposal that went out for everybody to look at. So I don't think that it's a great plan to have it there in Sunmart, but this parking, the parking needs to be in its own parking lot. And if that means that he has to go back and reserve a couple parking spots from the gas station, rent those back, then that's what he needs to do. We don't need to have this type of parking in the street where the veterans are actually going down to the end and making a loop. Or the other question I have for the council right now is, where is Stanton going to come out with the river plan? Is that coming out between Quality Toyota? Can you guys show me that? On how that traffic is going to come on to St. Andrews? Has that been talked about? That's why we need community engagement in this. And the other property owners that have a vested interest along there.
Thanks, Lori. Going to call for the question here. Everyone aware of the resolutions on the table? Roll call, please.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Hicks.
No.
Fish.
Yes.
Joe.
No.
Bonnie.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
Freemeyer.
No.
That resolution is approved. Item number 2 is a resolution approving the 2024 rates for the Pebble Lake Golf Course. Kevin's with us, and we'll welcome him this evening. Good evening, Kevin.
Evening, Mayor, Council, staff. It's always fun to come and talk about golf in January. I'm here about rates for 2024, but first I only get to talk to you guys once a year, so I just want to hit some 23 highlights, okay? Last year was a record-breaking year for us as far as rounds played at Pebble Lake. We had 28,747 rounds played, and that was about 4,000 more than last year. I remember this is my 9th season coming in now in January, and I remember Anthony asked me 9 years ago about my first talk up here, and we did 13,000 rounds that year and 13,000 the year after. We more than doubled now, and things are cruising. So we opened April 25th, and we opened May 2nd, lapped the previous year, and in April the year prior. So our opening dates have been later than normal. We try to open the 15th of April, and we've now had 3 seasons in a row where our golf course is able to stay open deep into October, even though our opening dates have been a little late. Our driving range closed on October 2nd, but for the season, we had 11,425 black range buckets hit. Buckets are buckets that individual players hit to practice, whatever, but we had 11,425, which is 2,000 more buckets hit this year than last year. So everything is still growing and with a lot of momentum. So we hosted 52 golf and non-golf events in 2023. 45 of those were golf tournaments. 7 of those were non-golf events, 3 of which were weddings. I had 11 students or beginners in my community education program that we run every May. And it was the 7th year summer in a row that I've had over 100 youth students in the kids camp in June and July. I had 108 this year. So it's one of my most favorite things to do in the summer. We hosted a record number of golf rounds played in 2023. We had 315 paid households in 2023. Our goal is 300. Golf course our size, that with this population and whatnot, we range anywhere from 260 to 300-ish. Last year we went over 300 for the first time since I've been here. So it's the 3rd season in a row. Like I said, we remain open deep into October. We were awarded $1,000 from the Eagles Club, and we bought a new flagpole and flag to replace the one that's out there. And one of my most proud accomplishments is that Pebble Lake was voted the best golf course venue in Otter Tail County for the 2nd year in a row. And we basically compete against Thumper Pond, Perham, and Balmoral. So those are the highlights. Rates for 2024, I sent those out. I think Lynn got 2 copies, but we are looking to raise them 10% over last year's rates and raise our daily play rates $1. I didn't raise those last year because I know we're on the higher end, but we need to raise them $1. We need to get closer to the cost of everything going up still.
Thanks, Kevin.
Any questions?
Questions for Kevin?
I think I'll make the resolution, then I've got a comment.
Thanks, Anthony. I'd like to second, Tom? Thank you. Go ahead, Anthony.
I just want to say that there was none more skeptical than me 13 years ago. So I think you've done a great job out there. And I mean, I go out there on a Sunday afternoon. I don't golf, but I enjoy the scenery and the staff. So you've done a really good job, and you should be proud of you and your staff. So thank you.
I'll let them know.
Yeah.
I got it. Next summer, you're going to come out and golf.
You don't want to see me golf.
You could be the 109th kids membership, right? Yeah.
I got a comment. I just, when Kevin came aboard, I was the liaison out there, and it was a lot of, he stepped out and he said, I have a plan, a 5-year plan, I think it was, right? And I think there's only one person left on the board that was there when you were there, when this came about, but.
Just waited.
And I just want to say that I was 100% behind him because he had a good plan and things were looking good, and pretty much on his shoulders why this went forward. I mean, the board runs the show, but Kevin holds that plan, and it really was good, and I congratulate him.
Jim.
The one thing I want to mention is that they need the increase because chemicals and everything that they do on the groundwork, the equipment, the whole works, it's all gone up tremendously. It's about doubled from 2 years ago for all the chemicals and everything they put on the grounds out there. So it's one of those things where they need to make some money or break even or be right in the ballpark year after year. And this is the only way they can do it is by raising the rates. So I'm in agreement.
We try to carefully. I do a lot of homework, present it to the board, and then they weigh every option to keep them as low as possible. So
Sometimes they agree with you, sometimes they don't.
correct.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, Tom.
Great job, Kevin.
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome.
All right. It's certainly better than the last conversation we had about the golf.
Exactly.
But in all honesty, just to give Anthony and Scott are working, and I've heard that the conversations have been going very well with the golf course. So appreciate that as well. So
Okay.
we have a resolution. Further questions? Roll call, please.
Tom
Yes.
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 That resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Kev.
The next item is a resolution appointing a working group to discuss Greater Fergus Falls economic development services and funding. And I'd like to welcome the new president of Greater Fergus Falls, welcome him back to the community. Lance Anderson is here with us, as well as board member Chad Lamon. So I'll turn it over to you. Welcome, Lance. Thanks for being here.
All right, perfect. Thanks, everybody, council members and Mayor Ben. Appreciate your time this evening. As he mentioned, I'm fairly new to this role here in the last couple of weeks, so excited to continue moving forward with everyone that I've started working with here. So for the document, I think that you all have seen what our goal is we really want to request the opportunity to strengthen our partnership with the city of Fergus Falls and jointly promote economic growth together, right? Currently, we both have the common goal of business growth and retention and recruitment and competing against other cities that are in our area. And what we really want to do is just continue to work as hard as we have the last 5 years at Greater Fergus Falls, along with the city, and keep that relationship and that partnership even tighter as we possibly can. Because I think there's a lot of benefits and opportunities to capitalize with a public and private partnership together. I think there's a ton of value within that space. So what we're specifically asking for is a joint working group with members from both the city of Fergus Falls as well as the Greater Fergus Falls organization, really to determine what that partnership looks like moving forward. So that's my ask for the organization, and I'll turn it over to you, and I appreciate your time and understanding of the request.
Thanks, Lance. So it's a resolution basically establishing a working group. Let's get that on the table, and then I know there's going to be some conversation. Someone like to offer a resolution?
I'll second him.
Tom, and Lance, could you just give us your little bit of your history? It's interesting, and you've done a lot of things, and you're back in the community. So if you don't mind, just you're new to the organization. You're the president. You're leading it. So will you just give us a little bit of your background?
Sure. Yeah. Born and raised just outside of Fergus Falls. Went to Fergus Falls High. Off to college, and then spent about 25 years in the Twin Cities in probably 4 or 5 startups and some other businesses, and had some success, had some failures, across the way. And at this time, my wife and I are moving back here permanently this spring or summer once we sell our house. And we really love this area, and for me, it's all about this community and keeping it going, right? We want to keep going up. We don't want to slide back, and I care a lot about this area. So that's quite honestly one of the reasons why I took this position, because it's a place where I can make hopefully a big impact and assist.
Well, we're excited to have you in the community, and you're humble. You've had a lot of success and a lot of experience that's going to play very well in economic development in the city. So I, for one, really look forward to having this group discuss what the future of the relationship between the city and Greater Fergus Falls is. So questions for Lance or Chad? Chad, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think Lance pretty much covered it. I don't know what else to cover, but we're here just for questions.
Sure. All right.
Ben,
Okay. We're
do
good.
we need to put a parameter as to how many? I mean, a working group of 3, of 13, of 35?
Up to 3, yeah.
Up to 3.
In the resolution, it calls for 3, so.
Okay, very good.
I think that the group that's working on the golf board has been doing a good job. I think they should continue those negotiations, and I think that the new leader of the Port Authority would be another logical choice for that group. But we'll take that one step at a time. So, there's a resolution establishing this working group. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 That resolution is approved. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, tonight, under claims, we have $2,146,036.48. Someone would like to offer a resolution to pay the
I
bills?
will offer the resolution to pay the bills.
Thank you, Jim. Someone like to second that?
I'll second it.
Councilmember Thompson, thank you. If anyone has any questions, we'll direct them to our finance director. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 The resolution is approved. There are no board, committee, department reports or reports from staff or administrative officers. There's no old, unfinished, or new business that I'm aware of. Lynn, do you have any announcements other than the ones that are posted? Okay, so with that, we will be adjourning to a closed session to discuss a purchase agreement as allowed by Minnesota statute, section 13D.05, and I anticipate that we will be reconvening after that meeting very briefly. So with that, we will be adjourned.